Love Where You Live is brought to you by Live, Love Local Michigan, the online and print magazine celebrating Michigan through amazing adventures, stunning photography, high-profile content, and more. Subscribe to our monthly print magazine for exclusive content you won't find on our free online magazine. With your subscription, you also receive automatic entry into our monthly subscriber Spend Local Michigan and surprise pop-up giveaways with prizes so magical, you'll think you found a pot of gold at the end of a Michigan rainbow. Subscribe online at livelovelocalmi.com. In the realm of public safety, first responders are the everyday heroes among us who rush headfirst into emergencies, often saving lives or property and at great personal risk. They face a unique set of challenges and stressors that can take a severe toll on their mental health and personal relationships. They are regularly thrown into traumatic situations, witness immense human suffering, and face life and death decisions. Here in Michigan, of the 972 fire departments, over 85% of them are made up of everyday men and women with careers and jobs outside of firefighting who volunteer to rush toward emergencies. What drives them to volunteer is a story that we tell in our November issue of Live, Love Local Michigan, and one we will continue to tell. Our focus in this podcast is on the mental health aspect of first responders, volunteer and otherwise. The combination of exposure to trauma, demanding schedules, and physically challenging roles puts first responders at an increased risk of mental health issues such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD, stress, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicidal behaviors. As reported by the Columbia Lighthouse Project, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation reports that a fire department is 3 times more likely in any given year to lose a firefighter to suicide than to death in the line of duty. A National Florida State University study of more than 1,000 firefighters found that nearly 50% had suicidal thoughts at some point during their career, and about 16% reported one or more suicide attempts. A survey of EMTs and paramedics in the U.S. found that 37% had contemplated suicide and 6.6% had attempted it. Another study published in the Journal of Emergency Medical Services found that EMS providers have suicide rates nearly 10 times higher than the general population. It's important to note that of the 65% of firefighters in the U.S. who are volunteer, here in Michigan, with our 85% fire departments being all volunteer or mixed volunteer, our firefighters act as full EMS in many instances. It is rather ironic and undeniably disheartening that amid their fearlessness of rushing headfirst into emergencies, a deeply ingrained quote-unquote code of silence prevails within their community, and sadly in the broader context of mental health in the United States. These outwardly fearless individuals who are trained to exude strength, fearlessness, and an unwavering resolve find themselves constrained by a culture that discourages them from acknowledging their emotional trauma they carry within, and this has led to catastrophic consequences. Acknowledging the mental health challenges facing first responders is the first step towards breaking the silence and stigma. It is essential, and I cannot stress this enough, to create a culture where seeking help is not seen as a sign of weakness, but as an act of strength and self-care. Vulnerability is the essence of humanity. Allowing one's self to be vulnerable is a superpower. I repeat, allowing one's self to be vulnerable is a superpower. People are starting to realize this. Many departments are starting to implement programs and support systems to address mental health. More need to do it. In fact, all need to do it. It needs to become not a matter of questioning whether we need such programs, but a matter of such programs being a requirement. And that is what this podcast is about, confronting and acknowledging the mental health challenges facing first responders. We start the conversation today with members of the East Jordan and Charlevoix Township volunteer firefighters and first responders. We talk frankly about their challenges and how they are actively addressing mental health within their firefighter family. Welcome to the conversation.
Bart Adams. I've been a volunteer EMT basic for 20 plus years in East Jordan and victim services unit with Charlevoix County for 8 plus years.
Brandon Marr. My full-time job is a 911 dispatcher. I also have been on East Jordan Fire for 8 years, and I help out with East Jordan units.
I'm Kathy Trent, and I've been in emergency services on the ambulance aspect for about 25 years. I've been certified for 30 years. And I just switched over to serve on the fire department in the health and rehab aspect for 6 years.
My name is Doug Newington, currently with Charlevoix, EMS over at Charlevoix. Started out in the EMT class in high school, long over stop taking classes and certified fireman. Started out downstate, busier area, Southwest Michigan, and migrated.
I'm Matthew Tessa. I've been with the East Jordan Fire Department for 12 plus years now. I help in EMS here in East Jordan, and I also am a diver for the fire department.
You were a cadet.
We did a cadet for 4 years, so total I have 16 plus years in the fire department.
You look so young.
Right on.
I'm Tim Druns. I started out in '89. I've over 30 years in EMS. Retired from that about 6 years ago, and I just do fire, which I've done that for 18 years.
When we did the interview back in, this summer, I asked the question, why you do this? And Kathy and Tim, you were there and answered that. I'd like to know from the rest of you why you choose to do what you do.
One of the things that it does it for me is we're in a rural area and it needs to be done. And if my family were to be in need, I would want to make sure there are people that are available to help them out. And so I recognize that I have a semi-flexible schedule, and it's an opportunity for me to be in the community.
I love that you said an opportunity. It's an opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can, then we do. But it's an opportunity to do what's already living inside our hearts. I think we're all people that care
Mm-hmm.
for other people, and it's that chance.
Yeah. I think as a volunteer, it's more of a drive than an occupation. It's not something I have to do because it's my 9 to 5. It's something that I want to do because there are people in our community that are in need of desperate need.
And so my drive to serve on the fire department and help others started when I was 11 years old. We're not 11 years old. We set the fire whistle here in common. That would go off, and I would ride on my little bike all the way down to the fire station just to watch the guys blow out. At that time, I didn't realize why I liked it so much, right? So it was a calling, and I didn't know it was a calling to help my fellow community members. As I got older, and I found programs like the cadet program that we did here in East Jordan, I jumped in on that, and it just took off from there. So it's always been a calling. You can't explain why it's a calling. Just I like to be a helper. So from 11 till now, it's just been something that my heart has told me to do.
You think you'll do it always?
I think I'll retire from fire, EMS, and emergency services as a whole. I'll always do this.
My dad was an assistant chief, captain, lieutenant in the fire department for many years, 30 plus years. So I grew up with the fire service. So that's kind of where my interest, came from. I just enjoy it. I mean, if I can make someone's day just a little bit better, then that makes me feel, great. So
I'm the same way as all these guys that talk about the heart, it's in your heart. I grew up with a kind of a mission-minded family to help others. And, you see someone in need, you want to help them out. So there's like this intrinsic value for me, wants to help others. Yeah, I don't like Brandon when I was a little boy, I'd see, the lights and the sirens, and you always wonder what's going on. And you want to be a part of what's happening to help out when there were the crises,
I think that's a common theme is like you all possess empathy and compassion naturally as a human being. That kind of leads you to want to do this on the side. Some of you on the side, which is kind of like almost full-time anyway on the side, right? On top of your regular careers and your families. There's just like that innate compassion within you. I'm seeing that as a theme with this group for sure.
Well, as I'm listening to Ben, And he's saying he's just got that compassion that he doesn't want to see anything hurt. As I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, oh, that's so sweet. But in my mind, that's important, but that's not why I do it. In my mind, I can't handle chaos. And so when I see something in chaos, I need to step in whatever that is, and I need to bring control to that chaos. So no matter what it is, if it's a mess, I need to help clean that up. And in the process, we also take care of people. But on their worst day, like you're saying, if we can make it just a little bit better, in my mind, that's easing the chaos. But then turning things over like Bart is part of the victim services unit. Part of that chaos is knowing what other resources you have in your area to be able to say, I don't have all the answers to make your hurt or your pain go away, but I do have connections. And then we hand the baton over to somebody else who's more trained, who has the time and that expertise. But I just thought that was funny. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're so sweet. But I'm not that sweet,
No.
Oh, you go ahead now. Yeah.
We in the theme of mental stress. So I think there's a lot of chaos always in the beginning of a crisis moment. You guys have seen it. What happens when someone's poorly trained? That's very important. I think that's where a lot of hurt happens. A lot of mental anguish or stress, mental stress, where incident abuse will even happen in that moment. And that where everybody's there's a lot of chaos happening. Somebody starts yelling. Somebody starts, someone who's not trained well, yell or scream or berate somebody on scene. Do not happen to have a meltdown right on scene.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a fire chief to a lesser because they know they won't fight back.
Do you think that is related to the trauma of what you all do, or do you think it is just down to training? Because that's an interesting dichotomy there.
Yeah.
Because I can see it as a fine line to being well trained, but still not healed, I guess would be the word, from a trauma or dealing with trauma in a positive way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of dynamics there. Depends on the person and the circumstances. Some people can handle it. They handle stress very well. And so that does boil down to training. Some of it's just the personality.
I've worked for people who just yell and scream. I mean, outside of EMS, outside of fire, it's another job. Your previous employment, I'm sure they yell and scream there all the time. It's just old style leadership or just who the people are. Some people have this their management style. They yell, scream.
And that's one of those things where you have to stop a minute. Let's forget about that. We got a job to do. We got people to help. One of the things that I have discovered because of the uniqueness of my situation is oftentimes when I get on scene, because I'm a volunteer and I've been in the community for a while now, is that they'll say, oh, it's Pastor Bart. And there's almost this sense of, okay, I can settle down a little bit because I know somebody. I have a connection with them already. Or even if it's one of the personnel, being able to come alongside them and say, hey, it's okay to be struggling right now. Let's go over and let's chat about it for a second. Let's just remove ourselves from the chaos right now and let's just settle down for a moment, and then we'll come back because other people are here that they can deal with this right now, and we can come along. I'll come alongside you.
Are you the go-to person?
I don't know that I would say that, but
Can go-to person.
Yes, I am the can go-to person. Yeah, people know that they can contact me. As a matter of fact, people from the community that know you, they'll call you before they'll call 911 because it's like, hey,
Seriously,
if I can go over there and just check their blood pressure and then just help them to settle down a little bit, absolutely, I'd love to do that rather than see them go to the hospital and go through the anxiety of a trip to the ER. And
the community been very blessed by this church. Prior to Bart, there was another pastor, and his brother was an EMT also. His wife was. How many members of this church? We could stack probably 3 ambulances out of this church at one time.
Oh, wow.
And this church has been so supportive. I think when we were coming here with our kids, coming to church here at night.
Safest place to worship, right here.
And what is the name of this church?
Lighthouse Missionary Church. It's a community of volunteers. There was a EMS run out to multiple vehicle, and all of a sudden, boom, we're all taking off, jumping into my ambulances and just going. There was a need, and we just dropped everything and left. I can remember times of being with my family, driving towards Charlevoix, and there's an accident scene, and the paramedic caught my eyes while I was driving by and said, "I need you right now." And I'm in shorts and sandals, and she's like, "I don't care. I need you right now." And that's the way it functions here.
And it's only able to function that way, I think, because we all have relationship with each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So what you see at the tip of the iceberg, what you see above is that we function very well. But what's below that is the relationships and the integrity that is amongst us, that we can go to each other, take care of each other. But also unseen, we've already had all of those relationship building moments where I know when I need you, I can trust you. We find now in rural EMS that we've got people coming into our departments that are just coming up to do a shift from out of town, and they're different.
What do you mean they're coming in just to do a shift from out of town?
So because we're lacking
Volunteerism is way down. Volunteerism as a whole is way down.
So somebody might come up from Traverse City or Cadillac or
Bay City.
City. So this is their full-time job, but they'll do a 24-hour shift up here and get paid for it. And what we find, what I have noticed, especially in the last couple of years, is that one, we don't know them, and we're not exclusive. We're very like, ooh, come and be part of us, but we have no relationships with them, and they don't know our community, and they don't love our community the way we love our community.
There's no connection.
No, so they get on scene, they do the job, but it lacks that personal touch of Mr. Bard, Brandon, Ben, Matt, Tim. It's like, okay, no, we're here. Do. And I think when you're living and loving and serving in your community, we've got those relationships, but then our community also knows I can depend on you. I can trust you.
I think that speaks to the uniqueness of what you have here. No, because even if an outsider came in for a 24-hour shift, if they had that same environment where they are, they would be able to connect with you at that level here. And it's lacking. It's lacking in places. I just know that from experience with people. Whether it's that way everywhere, I cannot say that and will not say that. I'm sure there are other communities like yours, but I think it really speaks to the uniqueness of what you have up here.
Well, I think it boils down to like small town America versus city living. So small town, everybody's somebody. Everybody is, and if there's more populated areas, always 10 people, let's say, to replace you in your job. We're up here, if you decide to move out of the community, that's a big loss for the community.
Just thinking about having Matt and Brandon right here, both of them have, and then you've got Tim and Kathy, they're involved in the school, and Matt and Brandon have students in the school. So students see them all the time. And so if they're having a really bad day at home and the fire department's called, their EMS department's called, and they see somebody that they're familiar with, again, we're back to that. They can relax a little bit. There's a familiar face. There's somebody they know. They can say, "Oh, I know Matt. I've seen him in school hundreds of times." Or Brandon, your kids are in my class, and they can kind of like, okay, things are going to be okay. There's that sense of
and that's one of the reasons why I love doing fire prevention. So I'm able to go up to the school, do fire prevention with the kids. I do preschool and kindergarten classes, going up there, showing them my face, who I am. Don't be afraid of me. Put on our gear. That kind of stuff I find that very important in our small community, because that one time that we have to show up to their crash, to their emergency, and say, "Hey, firefighter Brandon, it's okay. I'm here with you."
Yeah.
And now that child right there is my priority.
yes,
They may be in my daughter's class. They, may just be someone I know. Or even, it could be a fifth grade student that I don't know, but your younger sibling knows, so they know them. I'm okay.
Brandon does own fire drills.
I do own fire drills with the family.
I love that.
So you teach families to how to deal with a fire if they have it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
It's not, but he's made it a thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, just
That might be a thing we need to do more.
Yeah.
So the next podcast right there, but I need them.
Yeah.
So just, teaching the kids that, get out of the house, or sometimes I do bring up that we may go to a car accident. We're going to be there. This is what we're going to look like. You hear us, and you start building these relationships when they're younger. One to ease the kids when we show up on scene and we're all coming in, and also this could be your next generation of firefighters. That's also a small child doing that at some point in time. Not here I am, a firefighter, trying to continue that in our small community.
Now, I don't know if you have specific questions you want to ask, but a caveat to that is knowing everybody in the community, when it is their worst day, it can be really tough.
I said that's the backside of it too. I was thinking too.
Yeah.
There's some people I see walking around like, oh man, your brother was in a bad car accident and I was there and I seen you there. And, it does come back around on the backside of it too, where if I was a big city paramedic, fireman, something like that, but I would never see that person again. But some of the calls you and I have been on in the families we've been on with over the years, and we still see them and we're like, well, you still feel the loss in your heart for them. You see them all the time. Or their kids are in school, if their child committed suicide or something, and you still see them. Then you see them in school, and then you see them in home life. But yeah, I was there to help out when the child done that.
And even for us as the care providers, I had to do CPR for over an hour on a good friend who I was supposed to be meeting for something we were supposed to do together. And I was first on scene to discover that he was down with no breath, no pulse. And for more than an hour, I was doing CPR. And that's, it's twofold. It's like, I'm really stunned. That was an awful day. But I was glad I was able to be the one that was there. So their family knew that somebody was doing everything they could. And then I can also remember, and I don't want to make this about me, but I remember, my daughter had a classmate who had an accident, and I was on call and I was doing CPR on a 6th grader from my daughter's class, And so, there's that benefit to being able to help come alongside them, but there's also that effect on us. That's, think about Brandon or Matt, coming alongside one of your kids' classmates or something like that in a house fire. I can't imagine what it's like to try to encourage them. And
well, that actually flows into a question that I had, some of the more common mental health and traumatic stressors that you encounter. I think with you being in small communities, like you said, you're knowing everybody. I think that adds a level of trauma because you're dealing in a traumatic situation with people that you know and love, or someone knows and loves them. And so there's that factor of that as well. What are more of the common stressors that you all?
I don't know where I heard this, but I heard someone say bring the love one time. And when we have people in the community that we know, I watched this guy I know, just paid, and his wife was just browbeating him, wanted to browbeat him. She was really upset. Like, see, this is the way you're living. This is what causes us. And she just wanted to come at him right in the middle while he's having a heart attack. And I was like, whoa. It's time to bring the love. To bring the love. And then she had to be escalated right away. So it was just kind of like, time to bring the love right now.
We're putting that on a T-shirt. That is good.
You could have put the switch so easily at that and said, get out of here, quit yelling at him.
You could have responded in an invasive way.
You could have easily feel that fire.
Yep.
And just yelled and screamed at her and told her to get out of the room, and I'm running the show and everything. But your compassion, your years of experience, de-escalate that right down.
And being in the community and knowing this couple already gave me that level of comfort. I was able to just stand in front of her, embrace her, and tell her, just bring the love right now.
She needed that awareness because she could have been, and this is the thing with trauma. And I think it's just so important as part of an overall conversation about trauma. When someone is triggered, and that's a term that we really haven't used except for, we really just started using it the past 4 or 5 years, triggered. When someone is triggered, it's not a memory, it's a reaction. And so when you say that to me, that tells me she has a trauma that she's not dealt with because she doesn't have the emotional intelligence to deal with a stressful situation in a compassionate and loving way. So she was probably taught, not even maybe purposefully taught, but taught through her own life experiences to react that way in a stressful situation. That is such an important part of having a conversation about trauma, I think, and how, because you guys you brought it up multiple times now, where people will yell, people will scream in a traumatic situation. I firmly believe it's because that's the way they were taught, because that's the way it happened to them. And so it was ingrained in them at some point in their developmental stage to be that way. And so the healing journey of this, I love that Bring the Love. I'm so going to use that everywhere now. I love it. That is just so, I think it would immediately create a switch in somebody, I think.
It did. And it, yeah, you're right. Created the awareness.
You probably changed her life with those 3 words. Honestly.
At least his life. Yeah, at least his for sure. In the moment, this just they didn't seem so bad now.
Because people, you have a quick split second when they're in that raging moment, and you distract them for a quick minute. You get just a blip, just a quick second where you can inject something to set their course in a new direction. And
that's a skill that really I'm trying to bring to emergency services. And it's called verbal de-escalation. So people have their skill set of how you got your license, your certificate. And in emergency services, especially dealing with communities that are struggling with, that we have that opportunity to escalate it or de-escalate. And that verbal de-escalation is a whole new skill set that we have to embrace now in emergency services, because we have to set the tone. And that's now something that I think all of us in the room have those abilities to do it. But we also see plenty of people we're working with now, because of their own trauma or lack of experience or maturity or whatever. It doesn't come naturally to them.
Yeah.
To us, it all comes naturally. And that's why we all work so well together, because we know nobody's going to make our situation worse based on what they do or say. But it's not everywhere. Not everyone has that. So that's something that
even the general public, how many people do you know that are just crazy? I mean, go up to them and over the smallest thing, they're just flying off the handle, and you walk in and say, it'll be all right.
So would you
how many calls do you get? I'm sure.
Yeah, so people have that theory, though, I think.
It was a major issue to somebody. But we come in, we take care of it. And so that's the gift that we have, though. We are blessed to have that gift to do that type of thing. And it's something that you can acquire. I'm not sure, but
I think it's
if you can build it, it's some of it.
I think it is.
I'm hoping that someday these guys have it. Well, they have it now, but we need to build on it.
We look at each other, and when we're feeling, when we look at each other, it's like, okay, how did they handle that? Ooh, I need a little bit more of that in my life right now, and it just kind of gives us perspective. But I think we're constantly doing that too. If we're on a scene and if we're feeling a flutter, but we look, I've seen then, we had a situation where a person had a spinal injury and was looking at paralysis for life. Ben and I showed up on a backup run. I was feeling very a flutter inside. We're very good with a poker face. We're very good hiding a lot of that. But on the inside, I was just all a flutter. And I look at Ben and I'm looking in his eyes, reading him, all of his body language that we've got this under control. And whether we did or we didn't make it worse by having high emotions, and I think that's what else we have going for us.
And you guys didn't cause the accident. That's the biggest one of our mental part of it. Is we didn't cause the issue. We didn't cause that person to commit suicide. We didn't cause them to run the car into the wall or whatever. We did not cause that. Mm-hmm. We're just there to pick up the pieces. About the terminology for it, but through it, work through it. We're just there to do it.
Well, I feel like a lot of these small towns, small departments, that's what a lot of the problem is. Because I know personally, like when I get in the engine, we get called up for a PI head-on. unknown breathing status. The first thing that runs through your mind is, do I know that vehicle?
Yeah.
Do I know those people?
Yeah.
You know, so and truly 9 times out of 10, either I know them or somebody in the department that's on scene knows them.
Yeah.
And if not, throughout the whole 16 years of this, I had many of my friends either due to suicide or car accidents or, you know, and Tim's been by me for a lot of those. One of my most traumatic ones was one of my friends that lives here in town. He's still alive today, actually, but it was just, the accident was so brutal. And he actually coded 3 times on the way to the hospital, and it was just a really traumatic incident for me. But,
What do you do in the aftermath of a situation like that to focus on your own mental health? How do you guys as a group
we had
help each other out there?
Tim and Kathy, Glenn, somebody, Bart, anybody, if they know that it's traumatic, they know it's a big incident, they'll personally reach out to you, say, hey, I know it was a rough call. You want to talk about it? You know, how you doing? Or, and sometimes we'll have a debriefing if we can. We'll try to debrief about the incident. If people are willing to, if they don't want to say, that's fine. But, you know, we try to be a family as much as possible.
Do you feel that works though? Like just having that conversation?
Especially if you're able to get it off your chest.
You had a drowning in your back community of a young child. You know, after the child was located and, he passed away, everybody came to our station. The neighboring community came to our station, and we just stood up back and we did a round table. What I like to do is get the facts out first. There's so many things. Okay, what led up to this? Why did it do it? Why did it happen? What took so long? Put a round table, get the facts out. And we stood outside, didn't we?
Fire, EMS, anybody that was a responder.
We just invited them over right after that happened. We just talked about it right outside the door. And we had a little time of prayers. We reflect back what happened on it. And then to this day, one of the fire brother, he still hugs you or hugs me every time because it just affected him. He knew the young person. He knew everything. Well, and then he went through trauma in his own life that the child knew. So it was tough. But I think getting right back and dealing with it quickly, just something mild right away, and then work at it backwards too.
For some of us, we have small children. So going to those calls with small children and just seeing that kind of stuff, talking afterwards, it's extremely important.
Absolutely.
And just being with your team, with your people, talking. If I didn't have Kathy, Tim, Matt there, even Ben, Bart, if I didn't have these guys there, I'd be a little lost. Some of these guys are
we message each other at least once or twice a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, we're just messaging each other. Hey, did you hear this? How is this? What's going on? Just stay in touch with each other.
It took a long time for me to get out of my shell, but like before, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I would keep all my feelings to myself. And that's literally the worst thing you can do. Not only did that, hurt my marriage, but with my kids too, like you see yourself snapping and getting upset.
Trauma is a reaction.
It is. It truly is. So it's so important to talk to somebody or get the help you need.
I think with the training as an EMT for both my brother-in-law who used to be here and myself, when we would come alongside departments with critical incident stress debriefing, we've been to Manson-Lona, we've been to Boyne City, wherever, our ability to relate to them because we've been there, we've had to deal with some of those things, helped to give some credibility that we could understand what they were going through. Because oftentimes you get somebody that's trying to help you through something, they really can't comprehend what you've just witnessed, what you've just been a part of. So I think that that's been helpful for us is that we're there. We've been in the middle of those things with people, and so we can understand. So there's that's why it's so important for these guys to talk together because these are experiences that other people never have to deal with, and that's a good thing. But still, we have dealt with it, so we need to process through it. We need to remind each other that it's okay that we're not okay with this right now.
Especially your husband and wife.
Yeah.
Husband and wife, you and your wife.
Yeah.
How many people we have in our department? They're all over Northern Michigan. There are lots of husbands and wives that do that.
And I think that, and I'm sure that the rest of you remember early on in your careers, those calls that rattled you. And I remember my first call, and 30 years ago, and it was a fellow student that I had grown up with that was in a car accident, and he was not going to make it, but CPR had been started and we needed to continue it. And I remember in my mind, it took me a full year, but in my mind, I relived that moment of getting in the ambulance, of the conversation with the responders that were in the ambulance telling me, this is the situation. The person is not going to make it. We started CPR. You need to continue. And I remembered the sounds, and I remembered the smells, and I relived that. And I didn't know until much, much later in life that that's what trauma looks like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm able to tell people, kids at school, fellow responders, if you have that movie that keeps replaying and it's not a happy movie, then you've got to stop that movie. As soon as that movie starts playing over and over and over, you say, self, stop. That situation is in my past, and we are moving on. And I just didn't even know that that's what trauma looked like. And we certainly didn't talk about that.
Right.
And there's a layer of confidentiality. So like now you really can't talk about things.
Yeah,
But looking back,
there was no PTSD back then. There was no,
It's not in your training book.
no.
it was just suck it up, or maybe you're just not cut up your face.
Right.
Somebody just
Fuck it up, let her go.
One of the best men I've ever met, and one of the finest men I've ever met. And somebody brings that into him saying, maybe it's a you problem.
Because you're a man, and I'm going to flat out say it.
Cool.
We train our men, we raise our men in this country that your emotions are a weakness, and that is the exact opposite. What it is, their vulnerability is a superpower, and we need to give people, especially men. It's easier for women to talk about
But
our
it's
emotions.
counterintuitive, right?
It is.
Because you want to build them up for the fight. You build up towards the fight, and whatever that might look like, you're building up for that big moment. You're bulletproof. Nothing's going to hurt you. You're emerging.
But isn't that an emotion? Isn't that an emotion, though?
Yes. And so to come back and look at that and say, hey, maybe we've been doing this wrong all along. We need to process what's happening here and take a step back and recognize when, because we're not bulletproof, when we've reached our limit, to be able to step back and not yell and scream.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. We snap. Because we were told we could do this, and now we can't. And why can't we? And now we're frustrated and angry.
Right.
We're not bulletproof, but going into some situations, you do put a shield on because you have to get in there. You have a job to do. You have people on house. You have to get in there. You got to put your shield on, but that shield comes off afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And when that shield comes off is when your emotions show. They can flow. I go back to the young kid that drowned in the neighboring community. That was one of my hard ones. So, you put that shield on, you get up there, you have a job to do, you do whatever it takes to, get this kid, find him, get him out of the water. But then afterwards, that's when that shield comes off. My job's done. And now I can be vulnerable. I can call my fiance, and I can cry on the phone. And that's exactly what I did on the way home. Okay, because I had to decompress. Because at that point in time, I was filled with emotion. Okay, I had 3 young children at home. I was filled with emotions. I'm missing a baseball game at the time. So I want to talk to my son and say, hey, how's it going? You get out, what's wrong, Dad? Oh, nothing. Just, how's it going? But I'm able to be vulnerable after that shield comes off. But you do put a shield on, because you do have a job to do. You have to do it.
But that's part of your emotional intelligence. You recognize you put the shield on, but you can take it off.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
people that live in trauma put the shield on and they never take it.
Yeah, that's why I'm proud of Brandon, because I was the complete opposite.
You were that.
I was completely opposite. That's why I'm proud of him, because he thought about it and deal with this emotions where I would just lock up. I wouldn't talk to anybody.
And how do you feel you've progressed? Or do you feel like you're there now, or is it still like a constant?
It's always still a battle for me. Like, even come here to do this, it's still a little bit of me with like, but you know, I see so many people struggle with this, and there's so many good firemen, so many good paramedics, EMTs, but a lot of them are just angry and they don't talk about their feelings. And if we could get them to do that, then we could change a lot of people. Or they turn to alcohol. I've seen so many people.
Substance abuse. Yeah, substance abuse is a
And I've had people very close to me turn to alcohol.
Let's segue into that. The reactions of dealing with trauma. Substance abuse is usually the go-to. Suicide is kind of like the end result of a process. It's not an immediate. They usually start with some sort of level of substance abuse, and then they just hit the bottom and they make that decision. Maybe it's not even a conscious decision. They just make that decision in their trauma. How often do you see that in the first responder community, substance abuse? Some people can hide it for, they can be functional and
It's
still
definitely there.
Yeah. Do you think it's pretty prevalent? What are your experiences with that?
Yeah. Substance abuse and alcohol abuse is very prevalent.
All across the
In
board.
professions,
Yeah.
especially in professions where people are interacting with the public, because we're taking all of our own emotions and then we're harboring all of their emotions and their energy, and it's all inside. And so people, I think, are looking for the temporary solutions to temporary problems: alcohol, smoking, vapes, something to take the edge off. Sorry, voice. Mama Bear speaking. Mama Bear is speaking to the movies, who I love very dearly. But then I know, but whatever that is, right? But also thinking about suicide, a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that's where we can lean on those other services: church, victim service unit, counseling. I mean, Bart is in that prime position where he sees what's happening and addresses it at an EMS responder, but then also knows that there's a much bigger void that needs to have some interventions with the counseling, with the support, with the outreach, and bringing people into long-lasting, healthy solutions, because this life gives us problems in many ways.
Yeah.
It's not just a one and done problem. Problems are going to happen for life. We just need to know how to deal with them in a healthy way.
What would you say to other departments that really don't have the resources or the relationships like you all have here? Or even to anyone who may be struggling like that doesn't feel like they have anyone around them to go to? What?
Tough. It's not a quick fix. Something happens, I can't go to Bart and say, "Hey, Bart, can you fix this?" It's in us forever.
98. This is suicide.
98, yeah, that's what it is now. Yeah.
So I mean, there's resources out there with people that
Or contact a neighboring department that has that. We have mutual aid for a reason. It doesn't just include like fire apparatuses and ambulances. It's resources of, like I said, the critical incident stress debriefing, come alongside another department, help them process through that.
Well, that's a question I have. Like, is there something statewide in Michigan for first responders, volunteer firefighters, where like everybody knows this is a resource?
Now, what were you involved with?
when I was going through my stage of getting help, I reached out to a counselor, and they had found me one that was kind of deals with this sort of first responder world. And I'm telling you right now, when I first went, because I can't speak for everybody, but most people don't even want to admit they have a problem. They just don't, right? I'm fine, like, just leave me be. But like, once I finally, I don't know, they just talked to me and they got to me, and then I just let it all out, and I felt really a lot better. It took a long time, but it definitely did help. So
Where do you think your denial came from that you you had an issue. Where do you think that came from?
Trying to be strong, trying to be the father, trying to act like there's nothing wrong with me.
So you feel like that you were raised to believe that that's how you had to be? Do you think it came from a developmental stage?
A little bit, probably, I would say.
Yeah. Where would the rest come from, do you think?
I'm not sure.
Maybe society in general.
Yeah.
That
I just maybe feel like, because when I first joined the fire department, there was a good generation of older guys. And I like to call it the good old boys club. Okay. And they all dealt with their stuff because they've been through it. They just all dealt with it. So you just kind of brush it off. Like, I don't have a problem. I'm not supposed to have a problem either. So, and I'm sure they did. Maybe they just didn't want to admit it, or they dealt with it in different ways.
And many of them were yellers and screamers.
Oh, absolutely.
And broke down relationships. There was very much a hierarchy. And if you look back,
so much trauma.
So then it got passed down.
I actually seen a firefighter who raped up and used alcohol as his way of dealing with his problems, and stopped after a long time of doing that, and is now a wonderful person who is still on a fire department, who's doing really good for himself. So, it's not like you're in it so long that you're just like, I can't go. I don't care if you're in the service for 50 years. If you want to reach out and get help, no, you should. There's services out there to do so.
In mental health, thinking about this from a school perspective and relating it across the board, about 80% of the population are able to deal with something traumatic in a healthy way and get through it based on just everyday coping skills and what they have with support systems. And we call those like our tier 1 people. Like, you're going to be okay. We've got enough support. We get through it. And then there's about 15% of the population after something traumatic that are like the tier 2 people. They're going to need a little more than just what they have in their own tool belt to get through something. But it's a short fix. But then there's about 5% of the population that would be considered like a tier 3 person. And because of whatever the exposure was, whatever it was that severely impacted that person, they need intensive help. That they're never going to suck it up, buttercup, put on your big girl pants and get through it. They're going to need serious intervention to get through it. But the good news is that all of those supports are available. I think we're really good at being that tier 1 supports for each other because we're old enough and seasoned enough. We're looking for those ways to take care of each other. But then we have to be wise enough to say, somebody might need that tier 2 support, that tier 3 support, because it's bigger than what we can do together. And I think that's what you're speaking to. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Matt here is a testament to how far we've come in the last several years as just the fire department. And this is what we want for the rest of the fire departments. We don't want that yelling, screaming, bickering, blowing up, No, we want people to go down. That's
bring the love.
Yeah. And I know from chatting, we're not going to be here forever either.
Which is super serious, because
But these guys are my go-to people. If something happens to me when I'm 80, you're going to come see me.
Get a call.
Personal
phone calls.
I'm thinking about that on the way.
Oh, amen for that. Grandma too.
But you're gonna see me. They're gonna take care of you. So I want them to be brought up the right way. So, or whoever else in the department. It's not just these guys. There's other people. We want them to be brought up the right way and to move forward.
So,
with this and their whole life too.
So do you feel like you focus more on helping the younger generation coming up than
Absolutely.
the older guys who clearly need some help but are a little more skittish about it maybe?
I'd have to say, especially for me, like, I know what I went through at such a young age. I mean, I went to my very first car accident when I was 14, where there was 3 fatalities. Like,
How did you go when you were 14?
my dad was a fire chief. We're in a rural area. We're driving around. He just happened to be right there. We've all done it, you know.
And we all remember our first call.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they were all teenagers. I would just say, like, for the younger guys coming on, I feel like it's not my job, but if I can help, I'm trying my best to make sure that we can train them and do it the right way. You know what I mean? Make sure they're ready for those steps. For Brandon's first fatality, that he was on our department, you know, our chief did a really good job at saying, "Hey, Brandon, this is what we got. If you're ready, then come up here.
Our chief held you back.
You know."
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. You know, I remember that. I remember that very. Hey, listen, they passed away. I can walk up there with you if you'd like. So we walk up there. I remember the first question I had, anyone I know? We don't know yet. So it's one of those things that's unknown. So, okay. Yeah, I got to work. I'm like, Chief walked me up there. We talked about it a little bit. So he didn't just say, get up there and start cutting or, no, we don't throw people to the police. No, we walk up there. We hold their hand, walk up there. We make sure that they're going to be okay and that they're ready for this.
And he's not going to hide. Our fire chief's really good at not hiding things. He'll call you and say, "Hey, I heard you run that structure fire. You sounded awesome on the radio. Like, it was really good." The next call, "Hey, just I seen you driving by. You're going a little too fast. Just slow down." Like, he's not afraid to say what it needs to be done, and just he's very open and honest, and that's scary for him to retire. And I feel like him and Tim and Kathy, they'll probably all go within the same time area, I would imagine. And I'm not ready for that, but
I don't think we're never going to be ready for that. I mean, they taught us
protect each other.
values, and we'll just have to learn that when it is their time to lead, it is our time to teach those values. So
we can have minis of us,
Yeah.
and we can be in Glenn and
One of my favorite verses says, "Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it." And really, it's essentially grasping the concept of passing the baton in the right way. And I think about it with our own children, but Matt and Brandon were my kids in my classroom, and they're mine forever, and they know that.
she's the planner back there.
I held them to be accountable, though, didn't I?
Yeah.
But train them in the way they should go, because people are not around forever. But if you train and treat people with integrity and respect, and try your best to model when you're no longer there, whether it's tomorrow or in 30 years, they'll remember, hopefully, the good that you breathed into them, so they can carry that on to the next person. And I see you guys as being young people in our department, taking that leadership role to the new people that are in their first year, regardless of their age. But the first year firemen that are stepping in now, you are taking care of them in the way we have taken care of you. And there's no better testament in life than to see that carry out. That's the ripple effect that we're looking for. That's
Well, it's
what
a good
builds
thing out for you
community.
guys. That's like, wow, I could see my work, knowing that you guys did a good job.
I don't think I ever realized that until I think Brandon said just recently, within the last year, "I study you. I watch you. I see how you did it, and I want to do that too."
We pull up with you. We used to work with Ben and do that too.
Yeah.
We were the A team forever.
And I personally studied him.
Yeah,
I personally
but
studied
there
him.
it is.
We could work with Ben. And
You don't realize that people
we
are
come
watching
walking there and
you.
Ben's so calm whenever he goes to the house.
You just look like you're calm always.
Yeah. Oh, I love work. We had a lot of
You just have a very calm presence in general.
But this is our
Yeah.
team. I mean, we would know if it was Tim and Barton and I on call, and you're kind of like, whew.
When Tim does that on the radio, it makes everyone else's anxiety levels just calm down. You don't have to. Yeah, it's a structured fire, so we're all wound up anyways. But
And then we'll get on the phone with Brandon when we hear him as the dispatcher, and he had a really intense situation in this last week. Sending when it's over, you sounded good.
Calm and collected.
Like calm, you know?
You know, and if he has to come outside and call me because he's just so super frustrated,
Yeah.
that's fine. But at least he just nailed it on the radio, that whole shit. And then he goes back in and he goes, all right, let's do it. There we go.
No matter where you got, people are going to frustrate you. They're going to make you mad, do whatever. But how do you deal with it?
And that was extremely.
Can you share what it was? Is that possible?
It was
More actually, yeah, in the middle of where the fire departments were requesting more manpower from several other fire departments. So you got several fire departments coming to those cards, and you got several EMS agencies coming. You have a helicopter coming to take someone to the hospital. So you have a lot of different resources. And myself and my partner, who was also on Eastern Fire Department, we worked through it. We helped each other out. So it was a very busy day. As soon as my shift started, getting those text messages from these guys, sounded good. It makes a difference. It does, because they go smile. It's stressful because you can't go help him. He's got to ring the phone. I just think of that like us. If we get called, we go to their house. We can talk to them. We can give them a hug. We can do it all. But I've been able to separate fire, EMS, dispatch, and that's quality that I have. That I'm able to separate that, and I can book something out there because. It's still, I'm still doing some good work right there. I'm talking with my people, right?
I think that helps, right? That you can count on the people that are going to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very fortunate with the career, and I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Do they offer stress management for dispatchers and stuff like that? You heard much of that, or you just got to think the stress level of that job.
Definitely some debriefings, and some dispatch centers do have stress rooms, areas that you can take a break in. If I need to go step outside, I can step outside and get some cool air, and
it's tough because you can't leave.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially with them, you were the only one on.
Yeah.
You have a bad night all of a sudden. What do you do? All that's just like, okay, we can go home.
Well, and because you're county, you could be dealing with multiple different situations. Think about when swans are coming in and you're dispatching all the different locations for
power. And I think systemically, people in leadership positions in emergency services are setting up environments to take care of the 80%, those tier 1 things. We'll get you a room. You can take a break. We'll follow up with you. That's all very tier 1. I know, especially in Antrim County, a new police chief has stepped in. And I took a mental health first aid class with him because he understands that 80% isn't going to be good enough for everybody. And he has taken the stance. We need to know what that next tiered level of support is and how we can not only do it for ourselves, but then offer it, when somebody calls 911 and Brandon takes the call, then he's going to have to send a police officer to go intervene on scene with somebody who may be in a mental health crisis. But police officers are not trained in mental health. Yeah. So this is their fourth call, to this address. And it's like, we keep calling you and you don't tell us anything. And that's not their job. But all of a sudden, it's becoming their job. Or EMS responding to the 14th call to the same address, to the same person who's suicidal. We're so aware of those tier 1 supports, but we're lacking as professionals to know or have available.
So what do you think the solution for that is?
I think it's going to have it's the people that provide those tier 1 and tier 2. The upper level supports, the 3 and the 2 level supports, community mental health, Department of Health and Human Services, they're going to have to come in and educate us. And that's something that I put an invitation out to. Community mental health, come do that verbal de-escalation class for us. Come to us because we want to do what's right and good. And we're all very intelligent, professional people, but we don't know what we don't know, right? So we have to invite those people into our space. Here's the pamphlet. They keep out victim service unit. Here's the pamphlet. Every county has it. You just went through this loss. Let us connect you. And then they have a whole series of, supports that they could contact. But if emergency services doesn't know to contact them, then we've missed that whole link to all the other supports. Same thing with the ministerial association. If we know as boots on the ground responders that a family or a person is going to need more help, just knowing who to reach out to in a community like the ministerial association and what's in their wheelhouse, all of a sudden we can start referring people. I think about, like the food pantry or a resale shop. They have all of the material resources that they could use to step in to help somebody, say, if they had a house fire. But if we don't know who to contact to pass that baton, resources go unutilized. Families are unloved and left on their own. Emergency services personnel feel hopeless or guilty that they should have done more. So I think we just open those lines of communication, invite those people into our spaces to educate us, and that's going to get the ball rolling.
I think I would kind of piggyback on that too. That's just all new awareness, right? This is all new stuff. Like even just in my short period of time, it's all discovering new. We went from what's wrong with you to hey buddy, I can see something's bothering you and what's going on. To wow, I just got this dripping from a fire hose response to now that I really know something's going on with this person, what do we do with that information? And how do we approach that? Who do we get the right people involved? Because maybe they don't want to talk to me. Or maybe they don't want to talk to Brandon because Brandon said something 5 months ago to somebody else and now they're at odds, but Brandon doesn't know that. And Brandon thinks they're still friends. And Brandon's like, hey, buddy, what's going on? And then they're blowing up on Brandon all of a sudden. Now Brandon's hurt, right? So there's this chain of events. Wait, I didn't realize I was a hot button for that person. So, that hurts my ego a little bit because I'd like to think that I could help people, at crisis moments, but
knowing each other's strengths, there are times that Tim and I'm like, oop, they're going to need you. They don't need me today.
Yeah.
Because whatever it is about me is not what they need.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a you thing. Or Tim is like, I tried talking to them. They don't want to listen to me. This is a you thing.
So working with this person actually was one of the triggers. It was something I said 6 months ago. It's just so crazy to me, but
would you feel that should your leadership have done that? As me being a leader, should I pull somebody aside and say, hey, Matt, how's it going? How you doing today? Would that been helpful in that situation?
I think like you're, having an outside professional come in and do that because sometimes you don't want people around you knowing your stuff. Sure. And so kind of just to stay in your lane. But as leadership, recognizing that preventative maintenance can happen on mental health awareness in your station.
I guess knowing your surroundings too, like, the people that you can come to. Talk to.
Yeah. And that would be probably like,
but also not just when they're struggling, No. If they're doing an excellent job, say, hey, you just killed it on that scene. That was awesome. That was you rocked that whole thing. Like I didn't go to it, but I listened to it and it was awesome. Well, I sat back and I watched.
Anytime you can show an encouragement. I mean, that is huge. It's from business management background that I have. I always had a lot better performance out of people when I would encourage them rather than only pointing out what their flaws were.
I remember when I got my first, good words like "good jobs" from Glenn, like our fighter chief. I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like I felt really good about it. Like, man, I really want to do better now.
Yes.
So, and watching these guys not only, being leaders, but they're able to step back and let other people be leaders, even though they're leaders, and they have no problem doing that. So where they think that, oh, I'm in charge. Watch out.
That is something that's super unique. Yeah, department is these guys teaching me to be a leader, and then stepping back and let me lead.
So we have the driver's seat. So if you're in the engine, if you're in the driver's seat, you're typically running the truck. If you're in the passenger seat, we call it the hot seat. So that's the person in charge, typically. Now, watching someone like Tim have Brandon get in the hot seat and watching Tim get in the back seat,
I'm not offended by it.
wow. You know what I mean? But he's the assistant chief, he's the leader, but he's not afraid to step back and let other people lead. And for me to see that, you know, it's good. He's
cheap. Our chief's the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're also, you know, if they're struggling, they'll come in and be like, hey, let's do this. You know,
It's hard to, some people have a hard time with that. They'll come up and say, well, you should do it this way. You need to do it that way. This is the way. And I just look at them and I say, 3 + 2 is 5. So is 4 and 1. You know, there's many ways to still get to 5. It might not be your way to get there. There's other ways around it. People struggle with that, of seeing that there's other options to get to that.
and that power. Yeah, a lot of people love that power. They take leadership the wrong way. They think of more about I'm in charge, I'm the boss. Not my job is to make you better. You know, that's what a true leader is.
A true leader will take comments and suggestions from a subordinate. You know, I think about being on an EMS call and having a lead paramedic dealing with a patient, but I have knowledge of that patient. I've dealt with that patient, or I know them personally. And if I have an opportunity to share with them, you know, part of what they're dealing with is this, it might help them, or they might say, well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just, you know, it depends on their personality. So leading like that, you know, leading like allowing them to give suggestions. It's like, wow, yeah, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years. I never thought about using that as a patient support equipment tool, you know, or something like that. So I think it's important for that leadership.
And I'm not even a leader on the fire department. I am a leader on the fire department. I'm not in a title position, but I know that I'm a leader. Mm-hmm. I do the job day in and day out. I don't need to have a title. I don't need to have a fancy red helmet. I can do that job. I can run the scenes. I run many scenes. It doesn't, I don't have to have titles to do that. So,
yeah. And you know, no matter what, even if you have that title or you don't, I mean, that's the great point. I mean, you still lead. You don't have to have a cool helmet or you have to lead. You can still lead. And you know what? Even if you have that fancy title and that cool helmet or not, you're still going to show up, right? That's the job, right? You're still going to show up. You're still going to be you. You're still going to do your thing. And that's just, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're still going to show up. We're going to be leaders until we can't lead anymore.
You know, in my mind, this still all does boil down to integrity and people first. Absolutely. And then all that we do, that's what makes us work up here. It's what makes us work together. It's what makes us work on our departments. It's what makes us work in our communities. People first. And the more that we can embrace that and share that, at the end of the day, when you put people first, you will never, ever be sorry. And a lot of times it's other people first. Sometimes, mental health wise, you might have to put yourself first, and that would be an exception.
Yeah, you all have a great group of people.
We are blessed.
Yeah.
What gifts we've been given, and
I think about the volunteerism, you know, just the fact of when you're listening to when we get a text message, because of, you know, the alerts go out via text message now. If it's somebody you know, or if it's somebody like next door, like I would get a text message. And it's like, whether you're on call or not, you just go. And it doesn't matter if you're going to get paid for the run or not. It's just that's the last. I want to be there for that person. I get a stipend for being there. It's no big deal. But to be there for them, oh, it's huge.
Because they're going to remember that for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've got a key box. So if you guys ever get called to my house, please don't hesitate to grab the key so they're not breaking down the door. You know,
How many personal codes and keys do we just
pull the air conditioner out the window so that you can get in because the patient is laying on the floor.
Yeah, I think you all have something very unique here, for sure.
I appreciate the word unique as opposed to some words that we could use.
Yeah, they're good. We heard crazy.
Yes.
We heard crazy.
I think it's a good crazy. If you're called crazy,
I like our
I think
Yes,
it's
I
just
agree with
so
that.
important. There's such a level of community here that you don't see in a lot of places. How do you deal with the way the public sees you? Like, how do you educate them on what you do? Because fire is the least of what you do as volunteers with this.
PR is a huge thing for us.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what you're kind of.
Yeah. So what do you do to educate the community on what you do?
I mean, we try to do open houses. We try to any events that we have in town. We can get fire trucks out in the public, whether it's just during the festivals or whatever it may be.
Filling up pools. Services being seen.
Yep.
Well, how many years have you guys been doing the dunk tank where, personnel are on a dunk tank during Freedom Festival? So people are seeing you engaging in community outside of your responder requirements.
Right.
But also
little kids on fire truck rides.
but to the level of what they really know what you deal with. Because I learned
It's only in the moment. That is our best PR when we shine in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and I think about church, and that's near and dear to our heart. When people are in a crisis moment and somebody steps in, you are now connected for life in ways that you would never be connected before. And that's what builds those lasting relationships. It's what I think invites people, especially to come to this church, because you showed up on my bad day. You helped make things better. I have a relationship with you now. And I know that I can approach you in any area of my life because you showed up on my bad day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best PR we could ever, ever, ever do. There's no amount of parades or trick-or-treating or open houses that would give you that authentic opportunity to communicate the love.
Before COVID hit, I was developing this program called the Heart Talks. And it was basically, because I knew there was a disconnect between what we do and sharing with the community. And one of the weak areas was when we went into the schools, there was kind of this weak area of, here's a stretcher, here's a monitor, here's what we do. And the kids after about 2 seconds are like,
Yeah.
they're just, so what I did is I hand out stethoscopes, have them partner up and listen to each other's hearts. And then we do a quick spiel on bringing them up and talking about some of the things that maybe something bad that somebody had said to them, how that hurts. And boy, you give the kids a stage and they will just say some really, you don't even know what's going to come out sometimes, And one of the questions I asked was, what's one time you've been laughed at, teased on, picked on, somebody said something bad to you, what do they say to you? And, they call me gay. I'm not gay. Or they call me dumb or stupid. I'm not stupid or dumb, And then you rally the classroom to applaud them for how brave they were coming up and talking about how brave they were coming up and sharing their being vulnerable and sharing their hurt. And then as soon as that happens, as soon as the first person does it, it's like, boom, they all want to come up and talk about the time that they were sort of abused, or picked on or bullied. And so another component of that was looking on the monitor, the cardiac monitor too, so they can see the heartbeats. And so it's listening with the stethoscope and then really listening, seeing their heart, and then senior high. So that was kind of
That's cool.
what we were kind of in development mode. And I only got to do a couple of those. And that was something I learned from a guy who was a paramedic in Vietnam. And we came back from Vietnam. His name's Michael Pritchard. He's an amazing guy. He's a professional comedian. He was on that show Taxi for a while. He's friends with Robin Williams. And I reached out to him just in the email. Then the Northern Michigan paramedic, his agent called me back, said he wants to talk to you. Calls me back. We had this 3-hour conversation about, I know, right? Like here he is out in San Francisco, down by the bay, he's talking to me, and I'm talking to him, and it's like middle of winter. You know what I mean? It's just so crazy. And so I just kind of modeled what we do, what he was already doing out on the West Coast. And that's, he would have kids come up and talk, but he didn't have a cardiac monitor, and that's where I had access to that uniform. And so it brings some, realness to the classroom or to the setting. I'd like to start doing that again now that COVID restrictions are down again, and starting to think that I can normalize a little bit again.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That's something I think kids need.
Yeah, because there is a disconnect.
Massive.
Kids see you, but then they're like, okay, whatever.
They don't know.
I didn't even know. Until I had the conversation this summer, I had no idea. And I know volunteer firefighters my life, but I had no idea you did everything that you do.
Well, most people see a fire truck or fireman, they think, oh, they just put out house fires.
Yeah, that's
it.
the least of what you do is fires.
Yeah.
I think that level of awareness would help with the stigma of a lot of things too. The stigma of mental health, because so many first responders do suffer with it. It's a crisis, honestly, I think, in this nation, a huge crisis that we need to really face. And so, like the article, it brings awareness that fire is the least of what you do. You have the emergency services, the car accidents, you do roadblocks for parades and everything else.
We're hemorrhaging emotion. A lot of us are, as a nation, we're hemorrhaging emotion. And we don't know how to handle it, because that was never part of our upbringing for some of us.
That's such a good point. Thank you for saying that.
I know I'm going to add it in my heart talk too.
Yeah,
Bandaging our souls.
Yeah. We all know a lot of people that are going to listen to this podcast. They're going to relate to a lot of it, so hopefully it does help.
I think people who are not even doing what you do will relate to it, because there's so much trauma out there for so many reasons. And the majority of people go through some level of trauma. It's just different levels of. Some are very traumatic, some of it's acute, some of it's like with first responders, it's a constant with you guys. You're constantly seeing something and experiencing something. And so dealing with it when it happens the way you all do is so critical. And if more people did that, just think of how much healthier our society would be, and happier and together, and not so divisive in a lot of areas, So it's that level of awareness that really needs to be brought up.
Our society now is just so quick to yell and scream.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Cuss and swear.
Yeah.
At work, I don't know how many times people just unleash on you over something. I'm like, really? So in my world, it's so minute, but it's just festering in them, and they just release on you.
We're in a crisis.
We are.
Yeah.
Everybody says it's mental health. Man, it's just some of that.
There's no buffer.
But
Think it, say it. Think it, say it.
Or
faster.
Or you do
it's
this.
slow.
Put it on Facebook right away.
Yeah, but mental health, it is like people are saying the words mental health.
Yeah.
They don't even understand what mental health means and what it entails. And PTSD, nobody knows what PTSD is. So many people have PTSD. My dad was a Vietnam vet. I developed it through growing up with him. And I didn't deal with it and learn about that part of me until I was in my 50s, So when it was finally diagnosed, so it's like a lot of people have reactions to things that they don't even really understand where it comes from. And Matt made that point where he was like, I didn't recognize myself. So it took someone else kind of pointing it out for him to start gaining the awareness, I guess, would
Well,
be
they told me that I had some sort of PTSD. I was like, nah, you're crazy. Like, no, I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that guy. Okay. But you know what? It's okay to like accept it and move on. And what can we do to be better? And my biggest struggle with that really, truly was I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to be a fireman anymore.
Oh.
I really was. You know, people are going to be like what Ben's saying. Maybe this job isn't cut out for you. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want that. Like, I knew that I could be a great fireman.
Some will still say that, but they're the ones who don't have the awareness of what it is.
And I'm telling you, like,
It's gonna get better.
yeah, it makes you better. It made me better.
It
And I'm
does.
telling you, I did not want to do it at all. But I knew that I had to, get off my chest. I knew that I was trying to save a marriage. I knew that I needed to make my family, my kids, not see me as an angry father. And I recognized that I was doing those things. So I made the steps to change. And you have to want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be someone else to tell you. You have to want to do it.
Such a good
I
point.
think back when we used to do the family groups here with our kids and everything else. I mean, it was just bringing everybody together who dealt with everything the same way. And
So you would bring your kids into the conversation.
we would just have family nights after church service here. We'd go to church service, have a group afterwards, or
But we were all on the same ambulance service
Yeah.
together.
and our kids grew up together and we were all dealing with it together. You would bring it up. We would talk about different things and just, it was our own little small group to just debrief, even if we were just lightly talk about it. It was more of a
Right.
family debriefing group that we had.
A support group.
Yeah.
A small group, a
Small,
support
yeah.
group. You could talk about EMS stuff and everybody would understand. Or we could just talk about macaroni and cheese and let's get to play, sequence because that's what we love to do.
Yeah.
But you knew who your people were.
Yeah. We were blessed that we had that group. And our kids kind of grew up and we kind of, I hate to say it, but we moved away, didn't we? But it's like,
But the foundation is there.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, me and Brandon, we're best friends. I mean,
I can tell.
Yeah, but we barely get to see each other. So even if we're to make it trick because it's something to do with DMS or whatever the case may be, we make time to do it. Like you had to take a battery back to task the other day. We made time to go with each other, and it was nice. As weird as that was.
That's not weird.
No,
We're
I
just,
don't think it's weird at all.
I get it. Like you get older and you just kind of.
we followed our kids and we did whatever. We did a couple mission trips together down to Kentucky. And we went down there to serve people because that's what we like to do. We built off it and we experienced, we will never forget our mission trips.
Find your support group.
Yeah.
Get your small groups. You have your big group, you have your small group.
Yeah.
Find your
And
Find
it's
your
not a
small
clique.
Right.
It's
It's
your
yours.
people.
Yeah, your people is your support group, your brand.
And it might be somebody different this year. It might be somebody different in 5 years. It's your group changes as you get older.
What language do you think we could use more to kind of dismantle the stigma of saying PTSD, of, using mental health in the right terms where people understand that it's just not, I don't even want to say catchphrase, but it's kind of like a catch thing now. It's like everything is mental health, but it's not used properly. It's kind of like the word narcissist. Everybody's a narcissist now, right? Very few people are truly narcissists. So it's just a word that's thrown around, and mental health is thrown around as an excuse, but there's no follow-up to actually dealing with it. So within the first responder community, what would you say would be the language that we should start using to kind of dismantle the stigma even more? Because it's still there. It's slowly dwindling away, but
The crisis moments describe it well because if you diagnose, if you label something, it sort of sticks. And nobody wants to be made to feel crazy. And they're just crazy. Well, that sort of sticks. That term or that label crazy just sort of sticks, where we all have our moments where we don't know what to do, or we're out of character, or maybe our emotions are out of whack and we lose it, or we say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. You can easily get labeled as crazy. Or you can recognize it as, it's all driven, and then they hit the reset button and good to go.
I like that because it's only for a moment.
Yeah.
You're in a crisis for a moment.
Yeah.
You have that reset button.
It's the reset button. Then
I want to start over.
You have a lot of good catchphrases, honestly. You do.
He's been in.
Bring the love, crisis moments, hit reset.
That's why we invited.
I mean,
That's
you
why
know,
she invited him.
It's like we could write a whole book with you on like the
Get this guy
process.
a flip calendar. Like it's on
Yeah, no kidding.
wise words according to Ben.
I think to go along with some of her trauma, though, I think having the humility to be able to share that you've gone through it and you're healing from it. I think that's important for like what Matt's been sharing. You know, being able to say, "Yeah, I've dealt with that." I think it helps others to recognize, you know, all right, I'm not alone in this. Other people. That's what happens so often in life is we feel like I'm the only one that goes through this. I'm just, you know what? I just got to suffer. But have somebody literally say, I needed help. And when I saw it, I received it, and I'm much better off for it now. An advocate for receiving that help.
And I can totally understand why people were suicide. And I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was confused. I didn't know what I should do. I didn't know maybe I wasn't good here in this world. You know, and those are kind of the things that cross my mind. You know, I can't lie to you. I was confused, crying in my own shell, and then trying to accept the fact that Matt, dude, you got a problem, and it's okay to go get help. And I can guarantee you that your fire chief is not going to be upset with you. You know, and to have to go to, and I didn't have to. I could have kept to myself and not told a soul, just between me and counselor and doctors or whoever. But I didn't. I felt that leadership needed to make sure I'm keeping myself in check. You know, so I told Tim and I told our fire chief, just
And you were having chest pains. What would you have done? You went to seek help.
Yeah.
If you had broke your arm, what would you have done?
Exactly.
So then they can keep an eye on me and
Or you would have talked to somebody about it.
yeah.
It's just another layer of it that isn't out there to find it.
So I can see the struggle in a lot of these younger, older, newer first responders or even seasoned ones. And so I can see the struggle that they go through.
You have something get today traumatic on all of us. You don't know whatever's lined up next to the dominoes.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think you're right. Recognizing when someone's in a struggle, saying a struggle for what it is, knowing how to reach out. I see you're struggling. I find that we say, is it a me thing? Is it something that I can help you with? So kind of owning that too. But then listening, you can see it because you were there. I can see my own struggles because I'm there. Jim knows where my big red buttons are. And he knows when somebody has pushed my big red button and that's a trigger for me. He knows it. Go ahead and put those cones out of order. Let those cones swear on the road. You want to see Mama Bear go cuckoo crazy? Don't push those big red buttons. I mean, it's one thing to do it in fun, but it's another thing when you know that it truly is a big red button.
They do it on purpose.
That was a big red button. Yeah. And whether it was on purpose or not, malicious or not, we know how to take it in the humor. But also, if we know each other's triggers, it's ooh, you discovered your coworker's trigger. Ooh, didn't know.
Or know what me. I'd say the other biggest part of the whole mental health thing first responders do is making sure you make time for yourself.
Yeah.
I was dedicated to the fire department. I didn't miss a call, ever. If you go on the sheet where it shows, my name is all the way down. And everyone else is kind of you got to make time for yourself. Your family, you're going to destroy your family.
Mm-hmm.
You have to separate it at some point. It's okay to miss some calls. Okay? It really is. There's somebody else will be there. It's totally okay. And I've been learning the last couple of years to try to step back some, and I still show up a lot, but I step back. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. So, and I'm not always, if it's a big fire, sure, I'll try to find a babysitter. But if not, then okay.
Previous administration, long time ago, he never left town.
Yeah.
Never left town. he was 30 years or so, never would have vacation, never did anything. And then
Would be every family gathering
yeah,
for the next run.
and then he was planning on when he retired, him and his wife would travel, or do whatever. It's like that way before they got a chance to do it. And that always so hurt me. She was a wonderful lady, but they lived, for all that.
It was who they were.
Yeah, it was who they were.
It wasn't a part of who they were. So I think we're all trying to balance. This helps define parts of who we are. This isn't who we are.
And look, he's not part of the service anymore. It's still running.
Yeah.
It's still going on, but yeah, it just hurts me that they never had a chance to do anything together.
Mm-hmm.
They were so good to everything else, but yet they never took any time for themselves.
It literally got to the point where I would get text messages with calls. Why were you on that fire? Why were you on that call? Because they're so immune to me being there all the time. So it's really so important to try to make time for yourself. And if you're busy, then don't just go to your event. Because I would get to the point where I wouldn't even want to have a drink, just with simple dinner and have, because I was terrified I'd miss a call.
Wow.
And that's typical. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Is there any final advice or anything you would like to say about what you do?
When it comes to mental health, I think I just reiterate what they just said. Take time for yourself. Have boundaries. When you're off, you're off. And you home.
And ask for help.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
I have someone that keeps me accountable, and they often say, how's your self-care? How is your self-care? Are you going and just taking a day away with your wife and just enjoying a walk on the beach, or, just being out of the community so that it's just the two of you, or yourself? Have you gone away to just allow yourself some time to do what you enjoy rather than just doing what you have to? Having those people that are checking in, like you guys talking about all of the text messages and stuff like that, it's huge.
And people
The caring community.
to us to see how do you live.
Yeah.
So when you and Lynn go on vacation, it models for people, this is what healthy couples do.
Mm-hmm.
They work hard, but they take time for each other.
Yeah.
And I just think
They go to the kids' games. They coach.
Yes.
They spend time at the trick-or-treating events and stuff. I don't have anything else to add to that. But one thing that I just think about with the volunteerism is that, when you're out on those times and you come across, you see a volunteer firefighter sticker, you see a volunteer EMS sticker on somebody else's vehicle, and you just go up and there's an instant connection. And so you can talk about, so there's all of a sudden this connection point you have with a complete stranger that you can relate with them on a certain level. There's a respect level there. It's like, oh, I see you've got a white bar on top of your truck. What service are you involved with? So, it's just something I find.
We were in New York City on a vacation, and I had on an Eastern EMS shirt. Remember that?
Boston.
No, Boston. That was it. And they come right up. Oh, and this is a full-time Boston firefighter. I was asking, come on down in here. You can come right down in the hot zone. Look at this, and you can see this. But
we looked at each other, and the whole family went downtown Boston before the 4th of July parade. They had snow plows barricading everything, and this man took us personally.
Because we had that shirt on, he related to us, and then was like, okay, you're part of us. We're the brothers.
Yeah,
but good.
New York City was the same way with paramedics.
Yeah. Well, I had a full tour of the paramedic trucks in New York City. I was like that close to a ride on with them. Oh man, tied me up.
We went down to Mississippi after Katrina to help with the rebuilding and stuff. And I remember going to a fire department that was completely destroyed, but yet the firefighters were still there, ready to respond when there was a need. And, just being able to communicate with them and how they felt like, after a certain number of months, there was no longer any consideration for what had just happened. And yet they were still dealing with the aftermath. So, you almost feel forgotten.
This was fantastic. Thank you guys very much. I think this is going to be helpful to a lot of people. And that's really what my goal with this is. I want to help be a catalyst with other people's voices and other people's stories. It's kind of what the premise of the whole magazine is, with anything that I do with this. And I really feel like we need to give permission to people to talk.
Mm-hmm.
We have to communicate. We have to start conversations, as difficult as they may be sometimes. We need that. And we need people that are open and honest and vulnerable like you guys are to help lead the way and give permission for people to have those conversations and just tear down that damn stigma that we have around all of it, because it's so detrimental. It's detrimental to people on an individual level. It's detrimental to relationships. It's detrimental to our communities, our country as a whole. It's so detrimental. And you made such a good point that it's just, we're in crisis mode and that everybody just like goes off the handle for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's like, you turn the wrong way. You walk in front of somebody at the grocery store and they're making a rude comment, and it's just like, people have got to take a breath, a deep breath, and bring the love.
Bring the love.
Yeah, a little gesture. I posted this thing on Facebook once and it just exploded. Like, y'all have an Aldi's up here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Aldi's, you have to have a quarter for the cart, right? Leave the cart. Hand the cart to somebody.
Yep.
I'm telling you, you don't want
all the time.
the amount of like grace and thanks that people have, and the smile that you put on someone's face over a freaking quarter. And I posted that on Facebook once, and I'm like, it's such an underestimated gesture, and all it is a damn quarter. So imagine if we did that at a higher level, what would happen? And sometimes it takes starting small. Sometimes it takes starting a community like yours that is doing it and is doing it well. And you guys are so well spoken, and you're like a family, honestly, here. And taking that and putting it out into the world. And if it helps one person, that one person is going to help another person, and it just eventually explodes. I was thinking that more people than one are going to hear it, and I think can relate to this. But I think you have an incredible message here that not only just helps first responders, but I think even people in the community, because people need to recognize what you all do, and they really don't. The community really doesn't know what you do.
We have a serious PR problem.
Yeah.
We really do. So thanks for getting the word out.
Yeah, well, I'm going to help be that PR person. We've got some ideas. So, yeah, and there's a lot more I want to do with this. So thank you all so very much for doing this and being a part of this and being vulnerable and open to this conversation. I really appreciate it. It's an important one.
As stated in the beginning of this podcast, vulnerability is the essence of humanity, and allowing one's self to be vulnerable is a superpower. I would like to publicly thank East Jordan and Charlevoix Township Fire Departments for their willingness to be vulnerable with not only me, but with all of you. We here at Live, Love, Local Michigan and Love Where You Live podcast, in partnership with East Jordan and Charlevoix Township volunteer firefighters, are launching an important initiative through the magazine to address the ongoing need for mental health support in Michigan for our volunteer firefighters and first responders, and honestly, anyone else who needs it. Through product sales and events, we will raise critical funds to help support this initiative. 100% of profits for all of our activities related to this will go toward building mental health services and support for those who put themselves at personal risk to show up for us every day. Watch our website and social media channels for more information. If you or someone you know is at risk, dial 988 to reach the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You will also find the resources in our show notes on the Columbia Lighthouse Project protocol. That is a simple yet powerful tool that trains you to identify someone in crisis. Do you love our podcast and online content? Then you'll love our monthly print magazine plus 5 bonus magazines even more. Subscribe Plus 5 offers amazing adventures, stunning photography, and high-profile content you won't find in our free online magazine. Plus, you receive automatic entry into our monthly Spend Local Michigan and surprise pop-up giveaways, where you have a chance to win a monthly Made in Michigan goodie box and other awesome prizes like GoPros, kayaks, outdoor gear, and more. Subscribe Plus 5 today at livelovelocal.mi.com.